Hey, what is up guys? How's everyone going? How's the revision going? I hope it's going well. I know it can be a stressful time. I know January can be quite a hard month to get through in terms of study and school and everything. So I hope it's going okay, especially if you're preparing for your GCSEs in May. So in this video, I'm going through paper 2 of the Maths GCSEs from November 2017. So these were the resets for anyone that wanted to have another go at their maths exams from June of 2017. They could come back in November and have another go. And this was a calculator paper. They had 1 hour and 30 minutes to do this exam, and I'll be going through every question in this exam in this video. So it should take hopefully about an hour and a half for me to get through all of the questions. If you're just after the paper, I've linked that in the description, so you can go ahead and download that and print that off and have a go yourself if you want to. And I'd suggest having a go before you watch this video, before you go through the answers, as that would be much more beneficial to you in your revision and your preparation. So without further ado, let's get started. So question 1 says, solve 5x minus 6 equals 3 bracket x minus 1. So this is an equation that we need to solve, and we've got an unknown on the left and the right, so we need to get all of the unknowns on the same side. So we can start off by expanding those brackets. So on the right I'll have 3x minus 3, and then bring that 3x over to this side. So that's going to be 5x minus 3x equals, and then take that minus 6 and add it to the other side. And then on the left we've got 2x, and on the right we've got 3. And then we can divide this side by 2 to get rid of that 2 on the left, and we end up with 3 on 2. So x equals 3 on 2. Okay. Question 2 says, Emily buys a pack of 12 bottles of water. The pack costs $5.64. Emily sells all 12 bottles for 50p each. Work out Emily's percentage profit. Give your answer correct to 1 decimal place. So the first thing we can do is work out how much money she's made by selling them, and we can say that 12 bottles by 50p each, well, that's going to be £6. And then profit is how much you make, so divided by how much you started with, and then if we want the percentage we can multiply that by 100. So the profit is going to be 6 minus what she paid for the bottles, so 6 minus 5.64, and then as a proportion of what she bought the bottles for, that will be the difference divided by 5.64, and then as a percentage we can multiply that by 100. So if you do that calculation, you get 6.382, etc. It keeps going, and the question says give your answer correct to 1 decimal place, so that's going to be 6.4%. Okay, question 3 says Hazmeet walks once around a circle with diameter 80 meters. There are 8 points equally spaced on the circumference of the circle. Find the distance Hazmeet walks between one point and the next point. Okay, there are a number of things you need to do to work this out. So the first thing is we need to know the formula for the circumference of the circle, and there's 2 ways you could state it. You could say it's 2 pi r, or you could also say it's the diameter times pi. And in this case, because we're given the diameter, this is the one I'm going to use. So we can say the circumference is going to be 80 times pi. So the total distance as Hazmeet's walked is 80 pi. And then the distance from A to B, because it says it's equally spaced, we know that the distance from any of these 2 points will be the total divided by how many points there are. So it's going to be the total distance divided by 8. And we can say, let's pick a point for just to make it a bit clearer. So we can say the distance of A to B is going to be the circumference, 80 pi divided by 8. So the distance is 10 pi from A to B. So find the distance Hazmeet walks between one point and the next point. It's going to be 10 pi. You could work that out and say that it's 31.415, etc. Or you can leave it as 10 pi and you'll still get the 2 marks. Either of those is fine. The next part of this question says 4 of the points are moved as shown in the diagram below. Okay, so H is shifted and B is shifted and D is shifted along and F is shifted along. So it says Hazmeet walks once around the circle again. Has the mean distance that Hazmeet walks between one point and the next point changed? You must give a reason for your answer. So the mean of anything usually is given by the total distance divided by the number of points. Total distance divided by the number of trips or points. And because the total distance has not changed and the number of points has not changed, the mean is not going to change. So no, as the total distance and number of points has not changed. Okay, and that's question 3 for 3 marks. Question 4 says there are only blue cubes, yellow cubes, and green cubes in a bag. There are twice as many blue cubes as yellow cubes and 4 times as many green cubes as blue cubes. Hannah takes at random a cube from the bag. Work out the probability that Hannah takes a yellow cube. Okay, so we have some relationships here, and we can say that if yellow equaled x, blue is twice as many, so blue is going to be 2x, and then green is 4 times as many green cubes as blue cubes, so 4 times 2x is 8x. So here we have some relationships, and let's take an example. So let's say if there was one yellow cube, for example, then the ratio would be 1 to 2 to 8. And if we were looking for the probability of picking a yellow cube, we'd have 11 cubes in total. So the probability of a yellow cube would be 1 out of 11. And you can see that it doesn't matter if we have 2 yellow cubes and 4 blue cubes and 16 green cubes, or 3 yellow cubes and 6 blue cubes and 24 green cubes. The probabilities will always simplify to 1 over 11. So you can be confident with that answer of 1 over 11. And you might, in your working out in your exam, you need to show a bit more, you need to flesh it out a little bit more just to explain, because I'm explaining it in the video, I'm not writing everything down that I would, but make sure you're making it obvious to the examiner how you're getting to your answer. So the probability of yellow there is 1 over 11 for 3 marks. Okay, question 5 gives us a graph and the shape T on that graph, and it says rotate trapezium T 180 degrees about the origin. And if you don't have tracing paper, there's a trick you can use to rotate things 180 degrees. If you take a point such as 2 minus 1, if you rotate it 180 degrees, each point becomes the negative opposite of the original point. So the new point for this shape will be, for that point, will become minus 2, 1. Okay, so this point here, if I rotated that 180 degrees, that will become minus 2, 1. And then, so You can either do this for all of the points, or you can plot the shape in. If you're confident doing that by hand, that's fine, but I'll just go ahead and show you how this works. So if I took the point 2 minus 2, that's going to become minus 2, 2. If I take the point 4 minus 1, that's going to become minus 4, 1. And if I take the point 5 minus 2, that's going to become minus 5, 2. So they're my 4 new points of this shape, and it's going to look like this over here, and it should be flipped upside down, and it should look pretty much like you put it in a, you've twisted it around the origin. Oops. By the way, the origin is 0, 0 in the center of the graph there. Okay, so, and that says label that A, so that's my rotation. And then part B says translate the trapezium T by the vector minus 1, minus 3, label the new trapezium B. If I translate by a vector, the top number in the vector is the movement along the x-axis, and the bottom number is the movement along the y-axis. And if that number is a negative, I'm going to the left. If it's a positive, I go to the right. If they're both positive, I go right and up. If they're both negative, I go left and down. So I'm going left 1 and down 3 here. And the best way to translate shapes is to do it at a point at a time. So if I start with this point 2 minus 1, I can go 1 to the left and then 3 down, 1, 2, 3, and that point is going to end up at 1 minus 4. And once you've got 1 point, you're probably fine drawing in the rest of the shape without checking those. So this new shape translated is going to end up at this point here, and we can label that B. Okay, and that's question 5 for 2 marks. Question 6 says, starts off with p to the power of 3 times p to the power of x equals p to the power of 9. And if you know your index laws, I've also done a video on this, the 3 index laws you need to know for GCSEs. You know that the index numbers with the same base multiplied add to 9 here. So we know that 3 plus x equals 9, so therefore x equals 6 for 1 mark. And then part B says 7 squared to the power of y equals 7 to the power of 10. This is another index law you need to know. We know that when they're in brackets, 2 times y equals 10. Therefore, y equals 5 for 1 mark. The last part of question 6 says 100 to the power a times 1000 to the power b can be written in the form 10 to the power of w. Show that w equals 2a plus 3b. Okay, so when we are given 100 and 1000, we can write that in base 10. So 100a can be written as 10 squared to the power a, which can be written as 10 to the power of 2a. 1000b can be written as 10 cubed to the power of b, which is the same as 10 to the power of 3b. So therefore 1000a times 100 to the power a times 1000 to the power of b can be written as 10 to the power of 2a times 10 to the power of 3b. And when you're multiplying numbers with the same base, you can add those index numbers and you can say all of this equals 10 to the power of 2a plus 3b, and therefore w equals 2a plus 3b. Therefore w equals 2a plus 3b for 2 marks there. Okay, question 7 says ABCD is a trapezium, and we're given this diagram. And it says work out the size of angle CDA, which is in here. give your answer correct to 1 decimal place. Okay, so if you attempted this question and you were stuck as to where to start, I'll give you a hint now, and maybe you want to attempt it again perhaps, but there's one little distance you need to find in order to get you started, and once you find that distance, generally everything kind of falls into place. So, and the way you find that distance is using Pythagoras' theorem. Okay, so there's your hint. If you want to pause the video now and have another go at this question, feel free, but let's go ahead and start solving this. So the distance you need to find in order to start off this question is this little one in here, and once you find that, you'll see that everything starts to fall into place. So first, I'm just going to point out that we know this distance in here is 10. We know this length is 6 based on the height of the trapezium, because we're told it's a trapezium and those lengths are parallel. We know that this long length here is 24 centimeters, and this is 10 as well. So if we can find that distance, we will also know this distance in here, and then we'll get to that in a minute. But so to find, let's call this x. To find x, we can say x squared plus 6 squared equals 7.5 squared, and that's Pythagoras' theorem. And then we can start solving this. So x squared will be 7.5 squared minus 36, which comes out to 20.25, and then x equals the square root of 20.25, which is 4.5 centimeters. Okay, so that little distance in there is 4.5 centimeters. So therefore, this distance along here, that's going to be 24 minus 10 plus 4.5, so 14.5. And that's going to be 9.5 centimeters. So now we know this distance on the base of this triangle and the height of the triangle. And remember, what we want to find is this angle in here. Let's call that theta. Now, there is one trigonometric function that tells us what theta is based on the opposite side and the adjacent side. If you've used this mnemonic before, it's called SO, CA, TOA. And hopefully you've used that before. That's one way to remember these ratios. And this says that the sine of theta is equal to the opposite over the hypotenuse, cosine is equal to adjacent over hypotenuse, and the tangent is equal to the opposite over the adjacent sides. So we can say that tan of theta equals the opposite over the adjacent side. So to the angle here, the opposite side is 6 and the adjacent side is 9.5. So we can say that tan of theta equals 6 over 9.5, and then therefore theta equals the inverse of tan, 6 over 9.5, and that's something you can just put into your calculator, and that gives you, make sure your calculator is in degrees and not radians, and that should give you an answer of 32.28. And the question says give your answer correct to 1 decimal place. So your final answer here is 32.3 degrees. Okay, and that was for 5 marks. So that's a pretty involved question. I guess that the main difficulty is that starting point, in my opinion. Okay, question 8 says use your calculator to work out the square root of sine 25 plus sine 40 divided by the cos of 25 minus the cos of 40. What can I say? Make sure you're putting this into your calculator correctly. This is important. This is an important thing to practice. I guess you could get stuck if you're not using enough brackets. the way that I would probably do this is to do the square root symbol and then bracket, bracket, sine 25 plus sine 40 inside those brackets. And then some, and then divided by, and then the rest of it in brackets, and then bigger brackets around there. So you're making sure you're doing the square root of the whole thing. And if you do put that into your calculator, you get 2.75603,957, and it keeps going depending on how good your calculator is. You might have 10 digits, you might have 5. Yeah, you'll be fine writing down however many you get on your calculator display. Part B says write your answer to part A correct to 2 decimal places. If you round that off to 2 decimal places, you need to round that 5 up to 6 and you get 2.76. Moving on, question 9 says yesterday it took 5 cleaners 4.5 hours to clean all the rooms in a hotel. There are only 3 cleaners to clean all the rooms in the hotel today. Each cleaner is paid $8.20 for each hour or part of an hour they work. How much will each cleaner be paid today? Okay, so let's first work out how many hours it takes to clean this hotel. So if we've got 5 cleaners and they were all cleaning for 4.5 hours, we can multiply 4.5 by 5 to get the total number of hours they were cleaning for. So in total, it took 22.5 hours to clean the hotel. So assuming that it will take the same amount of time with 3 cleaners, even though that's not completely realistic, because if there are less people cleaning, it will probably take a little bit longer, but in this question we assume it will take the same amount of time. So we can divide 22.5 divided by 3. So each person will be cleaning for 7.5 hours each. And go back and read the question carefully, because it says each cleaner is paid $8.20 for each hour or part of an hour. So that means they're paid $8.20 even if they work half of an hour or 10 minutes of that hour. They're still paid $8.20. So we can't multiply $8.20 by 7.5, but we should multiply it by 8 because they get paid $8.20 for that half an hour as well. So this is going to be 8 times 8.2, which gives you 65.6. So each of those 3 cleaners will be paid £65.6. Okay, question 10 says here's a part of a distance time graph for a car's journey, and here we've got the distance in meters and the time, and we can see the graph going up like that. So between which 2 times does the car travel at its greatest speed? Give a reason for your answer. So speed in general is distance over time, and if the distance is greater and the time is less, then the speed is going to be higher. So generally when the gradient is steeper, that's when the speed is faster, because we're traveling more distance in less time. So between which 2 times is the car traveling at its greatest speed? It will be between 0 and 20. As the gradient is steepest. That's what you really need to say for that one. And then work out the greatest speed. So each of these squares is worth 20, I believe. And then it stops here at 360. And after we've traveled 360 meters, it's taken 20 seconds. So the speed is going to be distance divided by the time. That gives us 18. So the speed is 18 meters per second. Okay, question 11 says the pie charts give information about the ages in years of people living in two towns, Adderley and Bridford. Okay, here we have a pie chart for Adderley, and we can see the people from 0 to 19 take up this section, 20 to 39 represent this section, 40 to 59 represent this section, etc. And then 80 plus. So in Adderley, the biggest proportion of the population is 40 to 59. And it says diagrams accurately drawn, okay? And then in Bridford, we've got the same thing, and in Bridford actually the greatest proportion of the population is 60 to 79. Okay, and the rest of the question says the ratio of the number of people living in Adderley to the number of people living in Bridford is given by the ratios of the areas of the pie charts. What proportion of the total number of people living in these two towns live in Adderley and are aged 0 to 19? Give your answer correct to 3 significant figures. Okay, so there's a number of things we need to figure out first. So the ratio of the number of people living in Adderley to the number of people living in Bridford is given by the ratio of the areas of the pie charts. And we're not given any information about the pie charts other than they are drawn accurately. So what that tells me is that I need to measure these pie charts in order to find the area. So if I can measure the diameter or the radius, then I can find the area, as area equals pi r squared. And I've been a bit of a cheat, as I have done this. I've measured this previously. I'm not going to show you how to do it now, but I measured this previously and I found the radius was 5 centimeters. So the area is 25 pi for Adderley. And for Bridford, the radius is 4 centimeters. So the area is 16 pi. If you didn't have that information, or you couldn't get a hold of a printout of this exam, maybe you want to take that information, the 5 centimeters and the 4 centimeters, and have a go at finishing this question yourself. So pause it here if you do, and then I'll go on with the rest after you've had a go yourself. Anyway, so the radius there is 5 centimeters, the radius here is 4 centimeters. That's what you would have had to figure out with a ruler while you were sitting the exam. And so we can say the ratio, so the ratio Adderley to Bridford equals 25 pi to 16 pi. Okay, then it's asking what proportion of the total number of people living in these two towns live in Adderley and are aged 0 to 19. So again, we need to look at these pie charts, and this time we need to measure this angle in here, in this section, to figure out what proportion of that section is part of the entire population. So again, I cheated and I did this beforehand, and I measured this angle, and this is 70 degrees. And so now we can use the area of a sector formula. Area of a sector is given by the angle over 360 times the area, and we know the area in this case is 25 pi. Okay, so this is going to be 70 over 360 times 25 pi. Did it again. 25 pi. So that's that section 0 to 19. And that will be the proportion of Adderley, but we want the proportion of the total number of people living in these two towns. Now, so let me just give an example before I move on. Let's say I have 3 red counters and 4 blue counters. And I know the ratio of red to blue is 3 to 4. Well, what if I wanted the proportion of red counters? Well, I know if I'm just given the ratio. Well, I know that there are 7 parts in total. I know 3 parts are red, so I could say the proportion of red is 3 out of 7, just given that ratio. So even though I don't know the total populations here, I can work out a proportion based on this ratio. I can say that it's going to be out of 41 pi by just adding those two together. So essentially what I can do is I can take this sector, the area of this sector, and divide it by 41 pi, which is the total of the areas of both pie charts. And so if I do that, essentially what it will look like is 70 over 360 multiplied by 25 pi. It's just the same thing. So I've taken the area of the sector and divided it by the total of the ratios. And once you get to that step, you can put that into a calculator and you come out with a number of 0.118563, and the question says give your answer correct to 3 significant figures. So to 3 significant figures, this is 0.119, and then as a percentage we can multiply that by 100. This will be 11.9%. Question is only worth 3 marks, so if you found you're struggling with that, perhaps it's something that you need to work on, or just keep in mind there is quite a bit of a process to that question in measuring the distances, finding the areas, finding the ratios, finding this angle. So there is a fair bit of a process to that question. Okay, question 12 says RS and ST are 2 sides of a regular 12-sided polygon. RT is a diagonal of the polygon. Work out the size of angle STR. STR is in here. You must show your working. Okay, so these 2 sides are part of a 12-sided polygon, and because it says it's a regular polygon, I know that all sides of regular polygon are equal. And also I know I'll be able to find this angle RST in here because it is a regular polygon. I've actually done a video on angles in polygons, and in that video I explain how I come to this formula n minus 2 times 180 to find the sum of angles in any polygon. So if you haven't seen that formula before, watch that video on angles in polygons as I explain how I get there. And then to find one angle in a regular polygon, you can divide it by the number of sides. So for a 12-sided polygon, this is going to be 12 minus 2 times 180, or 10 times 180 divided by 12. And so that's going to be essentially 1,800 divided by 12, and you get 150. So this angle in here is 150. And what this actually is, because both sides of this triangle are equal, this is an isosceles triangle. So we can say that angle SRT equals angle STR because it's an isosceles triangle. So therefore, and we know that angles in a triangle need to add up to 180, so these 2 angles together must equal 30 degrees. Therefore, one of those angles must be 15 degrees. So therefore, angle STR equals 15 degrees. Okay, for 3 marks. Okay, question 13 says, at the beginning of 2009, Mr. Veal bought a company. The value of the company was £50,000. Each year, the value of the company increased by 2%. Calculate the value of the company at the beginning of 2017. Give your answer correct to the nearest £100. Essentially what this is compound interest in a way. So we're taking the value of the company after every year and increasing it by 2%. So we can actually use the compound interest formula. In its simplest form looks like this. A equals P, or the principal, multiplied by 1 plus R to the power of n. So R is the rate and n is the number of years compounding for. So we know the principal at the start, and we are looking for the value of the company at the beginning of 2017. So if we started in 2009 and we're ending at 2017, that means the number of years will be 8 years. And we know the rate is 2%, so this is going to, so A is going to equal 50,000, 1 plus the rate of 2% as a decimal is 0.2 to the power of 8. So you can go ahead and put that into a calculator. 50,000 times 1.02 to the power of 8, and you come up with an answer of 58,582.969. And then the question says, give your answer correct to the nearest 100. So we need to round that 5 up to 6, so the answer is going to be 58,600 for 2 marks. The second part of this question says, at the beginning of 2009, the value of a different company was 250,000. In 6 years, the value of this company increased to 325,000. This is equivalent to an increase of X% each year. Find the value of X, give your answer correct to 2 significant figures. Again, we can use this formula, but this time we're looking for a different part of this formula, because we know A, we know P, and we know we know N, which is 6, and we're looking for R. So we can go ahead and fill that formula in with everything we do know, and we can solve for R. Oops. And what that looks like is making sure all the numbers are correct. So to begin solving for R, we can divide 325,000 by 250,000. And I'm going to bring this over to the left-hand side. When you're solving these types of equations, you want the unknown on the left-hand side. So I've got 1 plus R to the power of 6. And if I divide that by 250,000, I get 1.3. To get rid of this 6, I can do the 6th root of 1.3. And if you put that into a calculator, you get 1.0446,975, etc. And then if you take 1 away from that, you get 0.0446, and that's where I'm going to go this time. And then we want that correct to 2 significant figures, so we want to round to the second significant figure there, which will be 0.045, and we want this as a rate or a percentage, and 0.045 as a percentage is 4.5% for 3 marks there. Okay. Question 14 says, on the grid, shade the region that satisfies all of these inequalities. Label the region R. I believe there was a question like this in paper 2 from the June exams as well, and I said at that time that this was a new topic in this year's GCSEs. I still think that's the case, so if you haven't done some of these questions before, that's okay, as this is a new topic. But let's go ahead and graph these. So what you need to do when you're graphing inequalities is treat it as a line firstly. So treat this as y equals 1 and graph that. And now look carefully at these signs. If it's just greater than and not greater than or equal to, that means you need to draw a dotted line. If it's a solid line, that means it will be greater than or equals to, but just because it's greater than, it's a dotted line. This one we can treat as y equals minus x plus 5, so we need to graph that line. And it's good practice to become faster at graphing straight lines by looking at the equation. So looking at this equation, I know the y-intercept is 5, and I know the slope is minus 1, so it's going to be going down like this. It's handy to be able to do that process quickly, and it's something I think quite easy to learn. The last one is the line y equals 2x, and that has a y-intercept of 0, 0, and the slope is 2, so it's going to be going up like this. Oops, that is not a straight line, my apologies. But anyway, you get the idea. So this line is y equals 1. This line is y equals minus x plus 5. And this line is y equals 2x. And what we want is the region greater than 1. So it's going to be up above this line. Whenever it says greater than, it's above the line. And when it's less than, it's below the line. For this line, we need less than this line, so it's going to be below here. And then for 2x, we need greater than 2x, so it's going to be in here. So we are looking for this region inside this area here, and it says label that region R. Okay, so once you got your 3 lines in, find the area and shade it in and label it R. And that's all you need to do for 3 marks for that question. Okay. Question 15 says Tracy is going to choose a main course and dessert in a cafe. She can choose from 8 main courses and 7 desserts. Tracy says that to work out the total number of different ways of choosing a main course and a dessert, you add 8 and 7. Is Tracy correct? You must give a reason for your answer. Well, no, she's not correct, because if you have 8 main courses and 7 desserts, for the first main course, you've got 7 choices. For the second main course, you've got 7 choices. So for each main course, you've got 7 different desserts you can choose. So actually you need to multiply them, not add them. So no. So you need to say no in there, as it is 8 times 7. As for each main course, you get 7 desserts. Something along those lines. I write these very quickly when I'm doing this in a video, just because it takes up time, but essentially you need to multiply them, not add them. Second part of this question says 12 teams play in a competition. Each team plays each other team once. Work out the total number of games played. Okay, so if you've ever played in a sports competition, you know this often happens quite often. And if you are one of the 12 teams, you know that you need to play every other team. So what we have is 12 teams playing all of the other teams. So there are 11 other teams you can possibly play. But when your team plays another team, they are also playing you. So even though we've got 12 teams playing 11 other teams, so we can say that's 12 times 11, we need to divide that by 2, because we don't want to double count, because they're only playing each other exactly once. Let me just give you a quick example of how this works in case this didn't make sense. Let's say we have a competition with 4 teams in them. So A can play B, C, and D. and B needs to play A, C, and D. But we've already counted A playing B. So essentially we need to get rid of this option here. And the same for C and D. They've already played A and B. They just need to play each other. So what you end up with is the total number of teams times every other team divided by 2. And if you do that sum, you get 66. And that's the correct answer for 2 marks there. Okay, question 16 says solve x minus 2 squared equals 3. Give your answer correct to 3 significant figures. So give your solutions correct to 3 significant figures. I like how they put a little hint in there just so people aren't getting tricked into giving the wrong answer. So let's go ahead and start solving this. So x minus 2 squared equals 3. And what we need to do is to square root the other side to get rid of that square. So this is going to be x minus 2 equals square root of 3. However, we can't just say the square root of 3. And if you're saying to me right now into the computer, yes, I know it's plus or minus, that's fine. But if you're not sure why it's plus or minus, let me just give a quick example. If I had x squared equals 25, x could be plus 5, or it could also be minus 5, because minus 5 squared equals 25. So to find x in this example, I'd have to do plus or minus the square root of 25. So the same goes for this example. So x could equal plus or minus square root of 3 plus 2. So x could equal minus the square root of 3 plus 2 comes out to 0.267949, etc. And plus the square root of 3 plus 2 comes out to 3.7320, etc. So, and it says give your solutions correct to 3 significant figures. So x equals 0.268 and 3.73 there. Make sure you're not tripping up on that plus or minus step. Question 17 says the table gives information about the heights of 150 students. On part A says on the grid draw a histogram for this information. Okay, and it gives us a grid and the table. So on a histogram, the y-axis is always called the frequency density. Sometimes they just call it frequency, but really it's actually the frequency density, and the x-axis is the variable. So in this case it's the height in centimeters. Okay, so to work out the frequency density, we need to divide the frequency by the width of the interval, because on a histogram the areas of the bars give you the frequency. So what we want to do is to create the bars in the histogram that give the frequency. So what we do is we say the density of the bars is the frequency divided by the width of the interval. So in this case it's 10, so that will be 1.5. And then you can see the intervals change. So the next density is 30 divided by 5, which will be 6. The next one is 51 divided by 5, which is 10.2. The next one is 36 divided by 5, which is 7.2. And the last one, 18 divided by 15, is 1.2. Okay, so there are my frequency densities, and they're the values that will be on the y-axis. So you can see that the highest frequency density is 10.2, so I could go up to 11 on this y-axis. So let me just zoom out a little bit. So if I treat every five blocks as 1, I should be okay. Bear with me for a second while I mark these in. It's always good to spend some time making sure your axes are accurate, even though it can be quite slow. It's time well spent. And once you've got those all marked in, make sure you're labeling it. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, 10. And then I need my intervals. So if I treat each of these blocks as 1, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. The first interval is 10. The second one was 5. The third interval was 5 as well. The fourth interval was 5. And then the fifth interval was 15. And I can mark, so I can start at 140, go to 150, 155, 160, 165, and 180. And then using the frequency densities, mark in the bars. So the first one is at 1.5. So that should look like that. The second frequency density is 6. And that's an interval of 5. The second frequency density is 10.2. With an interval of 5. The next one, 7.2. 7.2 with an interval of 5. And the last one has a density of 1.2. Okay. And that's what your histogram should look like. Make sure it's all labeled, intervals and the densities are correct, and you should get your 3 marks. Part B of question 17 says work out an estimate for the fraction of students who have a height between 150 and 170. The reason it says estimate is because we do not have an interval going to 170. You can see there's an interval between 165 and 180. So what we need to do is we need to look at our x-axis here. We need to find where 170 is on that x-axis. So if we look at 165, 170 will be here. And what we can do on a histogram is we can use the areas to estimate the frequencies. So the area of this block in here, this block, will be 1.2, which was the height, which was the density of that part of the histogram, multiplied by the interval. And that gives me an area of 6. So the area here is 6. We know these frequencies already because they're given in the table. So they're 30, 51, and 36. So we can say the frequency from 150 to 170 is 30 plus 51 plus 36 and plus our estimate of 6. If we add all of those together, we get 123 students between 150 centimeters and 170 centimeters. And it's actually asking us for the fraction of students of that height. We know there's 150 students in total in this question, so the fraction will be 123 over 150. Okay. Question 18 says, at the time t equals 0 hours, a tank is full of water. Water leaks from the tank. At the end of every hour, there is 2% less water in the tank than at the start of the hour. The volume of water in liters in the tank at time t hours is Vt. Given that V0 equals 2000 and Vt plus 1 equals kVt, write down the value of k. So we have a tank of water. It's leaking at 2% per hour. 2% per hour. We started with 2000 liters, and an hour later we're given the function kVt. So if we were to say the volume after 1 hour equals k 2000 times 2000, k will be some number multiplied by 2000 to reduce 2000 by 2%. So if we reduce something by 2%, it's actually the same as multiplying it by 0.98. So if we multiply 2000 by 0.98, we've actually reduced it by 2%. So in this case, k equals 0.98. That's only worth 1 mark. Okay, question 19 says, a triangle has vertices P, Q, and R. The coordinates of P are -3, -6. The coordinates of Q are 1, 4. The coordinates of R are 5, -2. M is the midpoint of PQ, N is the midpoint of QR. Prove that MN is parallel to PR. You must show each stage of your working. Okay, before I start, I know I need a diagram because I really can't get started on this question until I can start picturing it in my head. So they're giving us coordinates. So I'm going to draw a quick axis and plot roughly where these points are. So -3, -6 is down here somewhere. Let's say P is down here. Q, the coordinates of Q are 1, 4. Okay, so let's say Q is about there. And then the coordinates of R are 5, 2, 5 -2. So let's say R will be over here somewhere. Okay, and they're vertices of a triangle. So we can draw in PQR. M is the midpoint of PQ. Okay, so M is about here, being a midpoint. And N is the midpoint of QR. Okay, N's over there somewhere. All right. So I've got my diagram. I can picture what's going on. And what they want us to do is to prove that MN is parallel to PR. Right, okay. So I want to show that these two lines are parallel. I can approach this in a few ways. Ultimately, what I think my end goal is, and it's good to have an idea of where you think the problem's going to go when you start solving them, but where I think I need to get to is proving the slope of MN is equal to the slope of PR. And if I can prove that slopes are equal, I can prove that parallel. So the first thing I need to do to show the slopes is to find the points of M and N. So I can use the midpoint formula. So the midpoint formula says if I've got these 2 points, I can subtract, so take the average of those and I can get the midpoint. So I can do x1 plus x2 over 2 will be the x coordinate, and y1 plus y2 over 2 will be the y coordinate. Okay, so if I'm doing for m, then I'm using p and q, so this is going to be minus 3 plus 1 over 2, and then minus 6 plus 4 over 2. And so that gives me a point of minus 1, minus 1, minus 1, if you work those out. So m is a point minus 1, minus 1. The midpoint n, use the same formula, and we're doing it for q and r this time, and if we use those points, we end up with a point of 3, 1 for n. So that's the first step, finding the midpoints of p, q, and r, and giving m and n some coordinates. Once we have those coordinates, we can find the slope or the gradient. I should start saying gradient, I think that's a more appropriate word. So the gradient of mn is equal to the rise over the run, rise over run. So the rise is y2 take y1, and the run is x2 take x1. So to find how far I go up, I subtract the y decimal, the y coordinates. If I find how far I'm going to cross, I subtract the x coordinates. And what we end up with is 1 plus 1, because it's a negative, double negative, and then 3 plus 1. And that gives us a gradient of 2 over 4, which is equal to a half. And that's for the line mn. Then we can find the gradient for PR. So the gradient of PR is equal to, the, again, rise over run, which is equal to y2 take y1 over x2 take x1. And it's always good practice to rewrite formulas and rewrite equations and things like that to help you remember the process. And if you take the points of P and R, you end up with minus 2 plus 6 over 5 plus 3, and you get 4 over 8, which equals a half. So as you can see, the gradient of mn and the gradient of PR are equal, so we can say the gradients are equal, therefore lines must be parallel, and that's worth 4 marks there. Question 20 gives us a nice diagram, and it says OAC is a sector of a circle, center O, radius 10. Okay, so this is a sector of a circle. BA is the tangent to the circle at point A. BC is the tangent to the circle at point C. Angle OAC equals 120. Calculate the area of the shaded region. Give your answer correct to 3 significant figures. Okay, so the first thing we know about tangents is they meet at 90 degrees. So let's just fill that information in. And we need to find the shaded region here. Okay, so there's a few things we need to find. Firstly, we could figure out this angle, and we can figure out the area of the sector. We could also find the length of this side. Lots of things that are not given, but I know we can figure out given the information in the question. So the area of a sector is given by theta over 360 times pi r squared. So this is going to be 120 on 360 times pi, and the radius is 10, so that's going to be times 100. 120 on 360 is a third, so essentially the area of the sector is going to come out to be 100 pi on 3, or a third 100 pi, however you want to write it. Okay, so we have this area in here. The other things I said we can find is this. There's a circle theorem that says this angle in here is half the angle at the center of the circle. To prove that, there's also a fairly easy way to prove that as well, as this is a quadrilateral, and angles in a quadrilateral add up to 360. So this angle in here must be 60 degrees. And so angle ABC equals 60 degrees. And the other thing I wanted to find was this line, the length of BC. There's a few ways you could do that. You could split this up into a triangle. Now if I draw a straight line from B to O, I'm splitting those angles in half. So this angle becomes 60, this becomes 30. And if you recognize that triangle, you might go ahead and straight away you might know what the length of this side is. Or you could use the sine rule, which says the sine of A over A equals the sine of B over B, or you could use the cosine rule. However you want to do it, there's multiple ways to find the length of BA here. Whichever method you use, you will get 10 root 3. Let me just do a quick explanation of one way you could do that. So there's two triangles that are very helpful when dealing with trigonometry, and they are, one of them is this triangle with 30 degrees and 60 degrees inside it, and what it tells you is when you have angles of 30, 60 and 90, the angles, the sides, the lengths of the sides of the triangle in a ratio 1 to root 3. So if this side is worth 1, this side is the square root of 3 multiplied by that side. So in this example, this side is 10, so this side here is going to be 10 times the square root of 3. And also, we don't need the hypotenuse here, but we could also say the hypotenuse there is 20. But we won't be needing that in this question. Okay, so now we know BA, we know the angles, we know the area of the sector. Is there any other information that we need? I don't think so. So what we can go ahead and do is find the area of triangle OAB, because we know the base and we know the height. So the area of triangle OAB is going to be the base times the height divided by 2. So 10 times 10 root 3 divided by 2. So 100 divided by 2 is 50 root 3. So the area of that triangle is 50 root 3. And then we can multiply that by 2 to get the area of the entire kite. Essentially this is a kite. If you know how to find the area of a kite straight away, that's fine too, but you could just find, the easy way is find the area of the triangle and multiply it by 2. So the area of area of quadrilateral, quadrilateral OCBA equals this multiplied by 2, so 100 root 3. Now I know the area of this sector. Let's just rub all of this out for a minute. So I know the area of this sector is 100 pi over 3. I know the area of the total shape is 100 root 3. So I can find the shaded region by taking away the area of the sector from the total area. So the area of the shaded region will be the total area, take away the area of the sector. So if you put that into your calculator correctly, being careful to include brackets where you need them and all that kind of thing, you should get an answer of 68, and you'll get a number of decimals, but if you round it to 3 significant figures, you get 68.5. So the area of the shaded region there is 68.5 meters squared. And that's a 5-mark question. So I guess there's a number of steps, and most of the steps are quite difficult. So that's why that is worth 5 marks. Question 21 says, only 3 questions to go. So question 21 says there are 12 counters in a bag. There's an equal number of red counters, blue counters, and yellow counters in the bag. There are no other counters in the bag. 3 counters are taken at random from the bag. Work out the probability of taking 3 red counters. Okay, so there are equal number of red counters, blue counters, and yellow counters. So that must mean that each counter has 4. Sorry, each color has 4 counters. So the probability of picking a red counter 3 times is what we need to work out. Well, the probability of picking a red counter from the first pick will be 4 out of 12. And then if I need to pick a red counter the second time, well, that means I've already picked one out, so there'll be 3 counters left, and there'll be 11 counters left in the bag. So I can multiply that by 3 over 11. And then for the last pick, there are 2 red counters left in the bag and 10 counters in total in the bag. And so my final probability will be given by 4 over 12 times 3 over 11 times 2 over 10. And if I multiply those together, that will give me my probability. So before I do that, I'll simplify to make it a bit easier to work out. So if I simplify this fraction, it's 1 over 3, and then I can cancel those 3's out as well. So in the end, all I'm left with is 2 on the top line, 2 on the top line, and 11 times 10 on the bottom line, 110. And so that's going to be 1 over 55. And that's my answer to that question. So for 2 marks, 1 over 55. The second part of this question says, the counters are put back into the bag. Some more counters are now put into the bag. There is still an equal number of red counters, blue counters, and yellow counters in the bag. There are no counters of any other color in the bag. 3 counters are taken at random from the bag. Is it now less likely or equally likely or more likely that the 3 counters will be red? You must show how you get to your answer. So we've put more counters into the bag. So let's say, for example, we had 5 red, 5 blue, and 5 yellow counters. So we have a total of 15 counters. and there are 5 red out of the 15 counters. So let's work out the probability now of getting 3 red this time. So we could say it's 5 over 15 multiplied by 4 over 14 multiplied by 3 over 13. And this time, if you this time I'm going to do it with a calculator, because obviously this is a calculator exam, and what I need to be doing is comparing these two probabilities. So I don't really want them as fractions anymore, I want them more as decimals. So if I work this out as a decimal, I get 0.022. And also if I work this one out as a decimal, I get 0.018. So what that tells me is that yes, it's more likely that the 3 counters will be red. So as 0.022 is greater than 0.018, it is more likely the 3 counters will be red. And just to think about this intuitively, if I start with 3 red counters, 3 blue counters, and 3 yellow counters, if you think about that bag with 9 counters in it, what are the chances of picking 3 red counters? Well, it's pretty small. You'd have to pick the only 3 red counters. But if I increase this number of red counters to say 10, and then I have the number of blue counters to 10 as well, and the number of yellow counters increased to 10, you can see that you're more likely to pick a red counter. Even though there's more of all of the counters in total, there's also more red counters. So you're more likely to pick a red counter. I hope that makes sense. So yes, it is more likely to pick 3 counters that are red. Okay, question 22 says the functions f and g are such that f of x equals 5x plus 3 and g of x equals ax plus b, where a and b are constants. G of 3 equals 20 and f inverse 33 equals g of 1. Find the value of a and the value of b. Inverse functions are a strange concept to me. I think it's overcomplicating something that doesn't need to be as complicated as it is, as they're making it. So f inverse x is the inverse of f of x. What this means is if we take f of x, 5x plus 3, and we do everything in f of x but the opposite of it, we'll end up with the function f inverse x. So and we need to let some variable equal this equation. So what we can say is y equals 5x plus 3. And then therefore, so we're solving for y here. We want to know what, essentially we want to know what comes out of this equation if we put in x. We want to solve for x. So let's solve this equation for x, which will be, so let's get the x on the left hand side and the y on the right hand side, and then x is going to equal y minus 3 over 5. So this is saying if I'm given an x value, I can find if I'm given the output, I can find the input. So if I'm given f of x, I can find x. And yeah, I think inverse functions are a silly way to work with functions, but anyway. So what we can say is that f inverse x equals y minus 3 on 5. So f inverse 33 is basically saying if f of x equals 33, find x. So if this equals 33, find x. That's all that's saying. So f of x, so 5x plus 3 equals 33. Therefore 5x equals 30. Therefore x equals 6. Okay, so f inverse 33 is 6. Also, we're saying that 6 equals g of 1. And g of x equals ax plus b. So we can take that function now. We can take g of x equals ax plus b. And if we put x equal to 1 in here, g of 1 is just going to be a plus b. So x equals 1 there, so it's just going to be a plus b. And we know that f inverse 33 is 6. X equals 6. And that also equals g of 1. So therefore we can say g of 1 equals 6. So a plus b equals 6. I think there could be a much smarter way to state this problem, but anyway. So we know that a plus b equals 6. Also, g of 3 equals 20. So in other words, 3a plus b equals 20, using that statement in the problem there. Now I have two equations with two unknowns, and I can go ahead and solve that in whatever way, either substitution or using the elimination method. I'm going to use the elimination method by subtracting these two equations. So I get minus 2a, and the b's cancel out, and minus 2a equals minus 14. So therefore a equals 7. And if a equals 7, using a plus b equals 6, 7 minus 1 is 6, so b must equal minus 1. So therefore a equals 7 and b equals minus 1. That's worth 5 marks, just due to the fact that you need to know how to deal with inverse functions. The last question, 23, says S is a geometric sequence given that square root of x minus 1, 1 and square root of x plus 1 are the first three terms of S. Find the value of x. You must show all your working. Okay, so geometric sequence is when you're multiplying by a constant. So if you're multiplying by 2 each time, let's say we start with 1, we multiply it by 2, and then we multiply that number by 2, and then we multiply that number by 2, and we multiply by 2 each time. So that's an example of a geometric sequence. In other words, we're multiplying by some constant. So we can take these three terms, and they will be multiplied by the same number to get the next number. So the square root of x plus 1 needs to be multiplied by some constant. We'll call that k to equal 1, because 1 is the next term in the sequence. And similarly with the next term, 1 times k must equal the square root of x plus 1. This essentially tells us what k equals, because 1 times k is just k, so therefore k equals the square root of x plus 1. then what we can do is we can go ahead and use that statement, plug it into the first statement we came up with to find what x equals. So because we know k equals square root of x plus 1, the square root of x multiplied by 1 times the square root of x plus 1 must equal 1. So therefore we can expand these using FOIL. So this is going to be x minus 1 equals 1, and then therefore x equals 2. So the answer there for 3 marks is x equals 2. Part B says, show that the fifth term of s is 7 plus 5 root 2. Now, based on the last question, we know the constant, and we could call it the multiplicative constant. K equals square root of x plus 1, and we know x is 2, so k equals the square root of 2 plus 1. And we know that s3 equals the square root of x plus 1, so s3 is the square root of 2 plus 1. So therefore s4 is going to be the square root of, s4 is going to be s3 times k. So that's going to be the square root of 2 plus 1 times the square root of 2 plus 1. So we can expand that out using FOIL. So that'll be 2 plus 2 root 2 plus 1. So that's going to be 3 plus 2 root 2. And we know that S5, let me just write that 5 a bit clearer, S5 will equal S4 times K. So that's going to be 3 plus 2 root 2 times the square root of 2 plus 1. And if we expand those out using FOIL, we get 3 root 2 plus 3 plus 2 times 2, the square root of 2 times the square root of 2 is 2, plus 2 root 2. And then if we simplify this, we've got 3 plus 4. 3 plus 4 is 7. And then 3 lots of root 2 plus 2 lots of root 2 will be 5 lots of root 2. And that is the problem that they want us to answer. So we've shown that the fifth term, S5, will equal 7 plus 5 root 2. And question 23 was worth 5 marks. And that is the end of the paper. Well done if you got this far. Thank you so much for watching. As I said at the start of the video, good luck with your revision. Keep working hard. Stay motivated. You can achieve whatever you want to achieve. It'll be up to how much work you put in at this stage in the year. So I hope this video was helpful. Look out for my next video. I'll be going through paper 3. And please leave a like and a comment letting me know what you think. And I will see you next time. Bye.